is an act postponing the May 2020 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections. Mr. President, the status is in a period of interpellation. May we recognize the sponsor, the distinguished senator from Ilocos Norte, Senator Imee Marcos, and to interpellate the distinguished senator from Batangas, Senator Ralph Recto.
Chairman of the Committee on Electoral Reforms, Senator Imee Marcos of Ilocos Norte and Leyte is recognized, and the gentleman from Batangas, Senator Ralph Recto, President Pro Tem, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Will the distinguished lady from Ilocos Norte yield to a few clarificatory questions?
Gladly, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, may I know from the distinguished sponsor, what is so important in postponing the barangay elections?
What is so important is that the barangays and the SKs are at the forefront of the delivery of goods and services in the smallest unit of our country, and they are being deprived against the law of another year of their term of office. Given that the budget of last year was also delayed by 6 months, they have hardly any time to execute any of their plans and programs.
Okay, so is that the principal reason why we are postponing the barangay elections?
Yes, I think the principal reason is that we don't want to be in violation of the law, which states that a 3-year term be given to all barangay officials.
But didn't Congress decide on this previously, and that's why the term of office of the barangay for this particular term is 2 years, because in the previous Congress, it was also requested that we extend the term of office to 4 years instead of 3.
That is correct, although I was not a member of the previous Congress. And in fact, there have been consecutive postponements, 6 in the case of the barangay officials, 7 in the case of SK.
Yes, correct. And it would not be proper to say then that we are in violation of the law, because it is an act of Congress. Is that correct?
To that degree, it is possible that the case be made that it's not in violation, but in fact it violates 2 laws. The local government code in Article 43C is very clear that 3 years should be given to barangay officials, similar to other local officials. In addition, 9164, which regulates barangay and SK elections, also intends that 3 years be given to them. Okay. But as you said, in 2017, the determination was to set the elections 2 years, meaning May of 2020, under time indeed.
Yeah. No, the reason for the extension in the last Congress was because there was martial law. And that's why we postponed the elections. And that's why the term of office is only 2 years. Now, assuming we pass this measure as based on the recommendations of the committee, wouldn't it also violate the same law that the lady is saying, because we're extending the term to 5 years?
No, I think the Constitution does not actually provide for a term for barangay officials. It's up to, as you said, the Congress to determine the said term. I suppose that an extension of term is more a custom at this point, where we've had subsequent and consecutive postponements of these elections.
So it is good for us to extend it to 5, but it doesn't violate the law. If it were 5 years, if it is less than 3, it violates the law. Is that correct?
Mr. President, the recommendation is that we finally put a stop to these constant changes, make it predictable and reliable, establishing barangay and SK elections 1 year after national elections in the future, in all subsequent cases.
Okay. We will get to that later, Mr. President. Yes.
Mr. President, with the permission of Senator Ralph, I just want to
with the
manifest
permission of the 2 senators on the floor, the minority leader is recognized.
I just want to manifest that Congress cannot violate a law by amending the law. We can only violate a constitution if the proposed measure that we are voting upon or approving is contrary to the Constitution. If it is an existing law, regardless what that law is, It is within the plenary powers of Congress to amend that law, and to enact a law different from what is existing is not in violation of the law. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
That is my
Yes.
position, Mr. President.
Yes,
and
thank
that's
you,
why
Mr. President. The
I did
minority
ask the
leader
questions,
is
yeah.
right, that in fact, we cannot be held in violation of the law, but two laws actually stipulate the 3-year term.
Correct. And that is the position of this representation as well, Mr. President, as enunciated by the minority leader, that we are not in violation of the law. Nevertheless, the important issue is this, Mr. President. May I find out from the sponsor of this measure, how many times have we postponed national and local elections?
National elections, to my mind, have not been postponed.
Have never been postponed.
However, barangay elections for the barangay captains have been postponed 6 times, SK elections 7 times.
That is correct. So we've never postponed any national election, but we have postponed regularly. In fact, in almost all administrations, barangay elections. Is that correct?
That is correct, which is why the committee report seeks to regularize this and make it 1 year following every national election.
But isn't it correct as well that every Congress, every time we debate this measure, Congress in effect says, we will postpone it the last time?
I suppose so, and we indeed insert therefore a holdover provision to cover that.
Correct. So I've gone over the records of all the postponements, Mr. President, and that would appear to be the, in every Congress, every time we postpone the election, everyone says this will be the last time. In fact, in the 17th Congress, the first bill of the 17th Congress was also postponing the elections. And the first bill being deliberated today by the 18th Congress is postponing also the barangay elections.
That's
Isn't that
correct.
correct?
Once again, it
Once
was
again.
Senator Angara at that time who was the chairman of the Electoral
Yes.
Reform Committee.
In fact,
Of the Local Government Committee,
in
sorry.
fact, in the 17th Congress, we postponed the elections twice.
Yes, not once, but twice.
And this would be the third time.
That is correct.
And there's a saying, 3 times you're out.
Strike, yes po.
You strike it out. Now, having said that, Mr. President, may I know from the distinguished sponsor, in the Batasang Pambansa, the first time we had a law on terms of barangay officials, how many years was the term of office of a barangay official?
6 years.
Was it 6 years?
That is
Although we are
correct.
all claiming to be too young to remember that.
Okay, in the Batasang Pambansa, the law creating elections for the barangay, the first, would the gentle lady know when the first elections for barangay officials, when did that occur?
Was it 1982?
That is correct, in 1982. And the term of office was for 6 years, is that correct?
That is correct. It used to be 6 years.
Okay, and the term would have been until 1988.
88.
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and when was the first time we postponed the elections, Mr. President?
The barangay elections,
Yes.
following that, I think these are from May 1988 to November, November 1988 to March 1989, May 2000 to July 2002,
Let's
2005.
just start with 1982 to 1988 and from 88 to 89. So that's the first postponement.
Twice pa, nung May 88, naging November 88, at which naging 89 pa.
Correct. Correct, okay. And we extended the term by 1 year, in effect.
Yes, that's correct.
And the term from 6 became 7 years. Is that correct?
Opo.
Okay. What was the reason for postponing the election in 1988?
I don't think I recall, as we were in exile at that point.
Okay. Based on the records, Mr. President, the reasons then are very similar to the reasons today. And in all our debates previously, sometimes the reason would be masyado magastos. Election fatigue, because you had the elections in 1987. The first elections under the new constitution, and that there was insurgency. So this is the first time we postponed the elections in 1988. Now, the next election should have been in 1994. It was 6 years, because the term of office then was 6 years. Okay? And the second time we had the barangay election was in what year? 1989.
Yes, March of 1989.
March in
According to my
1989
record.
was our second election. So the term was 7 years, as we discussed earlier. And since the term of office of the barangay was 6 years, the next election then would have been in 1994. Is that correct?
Yes, from 1988 to 1994,
1994.
if
Okay.
the 6-year term had been
Yes.
followed.
And were there elections held in 1994?
From our records, no elections were held in 1994. Instead, May 2000 was the scheduled election.
Yes. Let me correct the sponsor of this measure. There were elections in 1994. There were barangay elections held in 1994.
I'm sorry, I was,
It was-
still in exile.
Yes, it was May 9, 1994, when you had the second barangay elections. And in 1992, because of the local government code, you had SK elections
that's
in
correct.
1992.
1982, 1989, 1994, and 1997
Yes. We'll
were
get to
the
that.
elections of record.
Yes, we will get to that, Mr. President. We had elections in 1992. The first SK elections, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And at that time, because we passed the local government code, then the terms of office now changed. From 6 years, 3 years na yung barangay election ng terms of office of the barangay official, and you have already SKs every 3 years. Is that correct?
That's right.
Now, during that time, there was no synchronization of elections between the SK and the barangay. Hindi pa
It-
synchronized.
It doesn't appear to have been synchronized.
Okay? And that's why you would have a national election, then an SK election, and then a barangay election. It's not synchronized. So magastos ang eleksyon. Taon-taon meron.
Yes, that was the sense, that every year the whole country had an election.
Okay? So almost every year you would have an election. Okay? And later on, in 1996, you had the SK elections. In 1997, you had the barangay elections. Okay? And then you had the first synchronized election in 2002. And that's why you had postponements again to have a synchronized election. So the first term was 7 years. 6-year yung term, na-extend by 1, naging 7.
Naging 7.
The second
Tama po.
election, 89 to 94, is 5 years. The following was 3 years. And then you extended the term again from 3 to 5. And on the fifth time, from 2002 to 2007, 5. And then in 2007 to 2010, that's 3. 27 to 2013, that's 3. And then on the 8th, 2013 to 2018, that's another 5 years.
Opo, I agree with you po. Paiba-iba po.
Okay. Why? Because Congress kept on postponing the elections. And at yung dahilan, in most cases, if not all, masyadong magastos yung halalan.
Parating nga po yan ang naririnig natin.
Right? Now, not only for the government, but also for the politicians, I suppose.
Tama po yun. Talagang magastos
Not
sa
only
atin
the
lahat
barangay
yan.
officials running for office, but those supporting the barangay officials.
Opo, although
Which could be-
officially non-partisan ang
Yes.
ating barangay officials.
That is correct.
Kunwari,
but
kung
Mr.
minsan.
President, I think the distinguished sponsor and I will agree that all elections are partisan. It's an election. It
It is
must be
clear
partisan.
that it's a political exercise. There's no need to quibble about partisan or non-partisan,
Correct.
party or non-party based. At the
That's
end of the
correct.
day, it's a clearly political exercise involving the division of power.
That is correct. Now, how many years have we had the barangay system? From 1982 to the present, that's about 36 years.
That is correct. If we count even previous to that, we had the Kabataan Barangay and the previous barrios
Yes.
and barangays.
But I'm just starting from 1982. And having said that, then the average term of the barangay
Has
would be more than 3 years, more than 4 years, almost close to 5 years.
That's correct. If we average it out, that would be the
Average
number.
it out, right? Okay. Now, in all these postponements, there must have been a cost to government. Because there's always preparations being undertaken,
That is right.
and there's always a cost.
I think the cost was very, very evident in the last postponement when it was so close
That
to
is
the
correct.
actual date. We are more fortunate this time because we are trying to do it a little bit earlier. The costs that have been expended so far are part of the regular budget of the COMELEC in terms of the training, where they've spent roughly 14.2 million, and I believe for the satellite registration, another 13 million. All part of their regular
So,
GAA
as
appropriation.
of today, how much have we spent, has COMELEC spent for the barangay and SK elections next year?
That would make a total of 27 million point two. But this is well within their regular MOOE and not a special item for elections. They were hoping, however, that their earmarked savings of 1 billion would be allocated to early procurement for the ballots, the carbonless paper, and so on.
Okay, so, but there is a cost,
There is always a cost to every
Always a cost,
exercise, as you well know, po.
okay? And every time we postpone, there is a cost as well,
That is correct.
okay? Would the sponsor know what the costs were from the beginning? How much have we wasted since 88, 94, 97, every time? Would there be data?
I think right now the only data that we have is the cost of the actual election.
Okay, so
I'm
we can-
sure some
I will not-
fraction of
yes.
that would be
Yes, I will not-
expended in the postponement.
Yes, I will not press the point, Mr. President, but the point here is, every time we postpone, there is a cost. Okay, now, and under this committee report, the term today of the barangay official is, because of the previous voice, 2 years, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
That's 2018 to 2020.
Okay, and under this committee report, we are extending their term by how many years?
We were originally saying that it should be May 2023, which would make their term 5 years. However, upon prodding and encouragement, the COMELEC says they can do it as early as December 2022 so that we don't have too much of an extension, although that would stagger, once again, the terms of office. But as you have said, this has happened often enough.
Yes. Now, the question is, the term of office today is 2 years.
That's correct.
Okay? And under the committee report, what is the proposal holdover? How many years is the holdover?
The holdover we're proposing was originally up to May 2023.
Which is 3 years.
3 years, another 2
So
plus
the
3.
holdover is longer than the actual term of office,
Under 2017, that is right.
right? Okay? Now, in previous extensions, has the holdover been longer than the term of office?
I believe so, because there was a point at which it was 7 years.
The term then
Was 6 years. Was
So
6
there's
years.
only 1 year added.
I see. So what has been discussed is how soon can the COMELEC have it, because we are all uncomfortable about extending it so lengthily. So originally, Senator Bongo and Senator Binay had proposed that October 2022 should be the full extent of the postponement. But given that there is an election, a national one in May 2022, the COMELEC asked us to give them at least 4.5 to 5 months to print the ballots, thereafter verify and distribute them, which would bring us at the earliest date around December 10 of 2022.
December. Isn't it that in most, or rather in the previous Congress, there was a decision that we hold the elections on a May, and that's why that is found also in the current election today, that the barangay elections are held May, during summer,
That's right, to make all the terms uniform.
to make it uniform. Now, if we change it again to October to December, then that would not be uniform, is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's always better to leave it on May.
The committee report recommends that it should be in May of 2023.
Yes. But the problem with that is that we're extending the term longer. The holdover will be longer than the term of office of the barangay official.
Ang haba-haba na nga
Sobrang
po.
haba, no?
Ang swerte na nga nila.
Okay.
Jackpot na rin
Yes,
yung mga
yes.
federation
And
na
I wanted to get to that
ex-officio.
point, Mr. President. Whenever we postpone barangay elections, who benefits, Mr. President?
I imagine the sitting officials.
So first, it will be the sitting officials because their term is extended. Now, how many voters do we have for the barangay?
For the barangay elections, we are considering that perhaps 84 million
All told? That
or perhaps even more. That's between the barangay
big? And the SK?
and the SK.
Okay. And how many barangay officials will benefit from the extension?
There are 672,448 positions up for grabs.
Okay. And how many voters are we talking about that are potentially disenfranchised?
In theory, the ideal would be that nobody is disenfranchised.
Correct.
Unfortunately, during the synchronized election of 2010,
No.
2 million were actually
Okay.
disenfranchised.
Okay. Now, if we're talking about extending the term of office of barangay officials, and there are how many voters? 84 million? Barangay
Somewhere
officials?
there, probably more,
Okay.
because those are the old figures.
Probably more. Okay. They would not have the opportunity to vote next year. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct. And particularly in the case of the SK, whose age would have changed by the time the elections are
So,
actually
ang
held.
makikinabang with the extension is roughly 650,000.
That's correct. More pa, 673,000.
673, and yung madi-disenfranchise is about 80 million who will not be able to vote next year.
But they will be able to vote in the consequent election.
Yeah, which is 3 years, 4 years from now. 2023.
2023, 2022, depending on what the chamber decides.
Yes, okay. So that is the point, Mr. President. No? Now, ideally, we do not postpone elections. Is that correct?
Definitely. Regularity and predictability is one of the elements of fairness.
And here we've seen that we've always postponed elections, almost every administration, barangay elections.
That's correct. It's become a bad habit.
It's a bad habit. And every time we do that, we say this will be the last time.
Yes, promises made to be broken.
Okay? Right? Okay. I think the majority leader is correct when he says, last time this year.
Sounds like the Commission on Appointments po.
Okay? Now, and may I know what the savings to taxpayers will be naman, assuming we postpone the barangay elections? Because under the committee report, we're postponing the elections under this administration and tossing it to the next. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And if we do that, what is the savings?
Well, in terms of the budget of 2020, there's a 5.7 billion allocated for the barangay elections,
Okay.
which
May I-
will no longer
yeah.
be necessary, to my mind, given that,
And the barangay elections is a manual operation. Is that correct?
yes, that's manual, it's not
And
automated.
how much do we spend for automated elections on national and local elections? 18 billion, I think, the last election.
Somewhere around that figure should be correct.
Okay? So, mas mahal pa yung national automated than a manual election pala, no? 3 times more expensive. When automated should be cheaper.
You would have thought
You would think so.
6 billion is the cost for the manual.
Yes.
No, the automated is now 6 billion.
The
Or so they tell me.
No, I think the barangay is 6 billion, but the last election was 18. 2019, no? National elections was 18, 19 billion.
I think the budget officer of COMELEC, having totted up the figures, now says it's in fact 18 for the automated national election.
Correct. That's what I just said. Roughly
Tama.
18
Tama
billion.
po kayo.
Correct.
Mali yung sinabing 6 billion.
Okay. And the barangay is roughly 6 billion.
That's correct. Mas
Okay.
mura yung manual.
Mas mura pa yung manual. Okay? Okay, yeah. Precisely the point. Okay? So I just wanted to put that on record as well, Mr. President. When automated should be cheaper and faster. Okay? But it would appear, after going through this exercise, mas mahal nga pala yung automated.
Mas mahal yung automated.
Now-
At ngayon, ang wina-work out po natin with the new DICT and the DOST and all the rest, na magkaroon tayo ng hybrid. Hindi ko po alam kung mas lalo pang mamahal yon o magiging mas affordable.
I look forward to looking at the arguments for that as well, Mr. President, at the appropriate time. But at this point, at this juncture, I was at the point wherein if we postpone the elections and move it to the next administration, what is the savings? Roughly 6 billion, is that correct?
Yes, that should be around the right amount.
Okay. And going from historical data, it would appear that the average term of office of the barangay has been more than 3 years, less than 6 years.
Definitely more than 3 years,
And every
upwards of 5 years.
And the first time we had barangay elections, the term of office was 6 years.
Dati po, tama.
Okay. So why not just have barangay elections every 6 years?
Mas bongga yun. Gustong-gusto ng mga kapitan yun. Magtitiis na lang yung mga kagawad na may ambisyon.
No, but the difference is this, Mr. President. If we decide to do that later for the savings, and if we're looking for more resources, and if we think every time naman, we keep on postponing it.
Totoo.
And apparently, we don't want to have elections every 3 years. Why not make our minds up and use that saving to spend for, I think one of the priorities of the President is the Magna Carta for barangays.
Yes, and for which Senator Tolentino, Senator Go, and myself are scrambling around looking for financing.
I also already filed the bill looking for the financing, which did not even include the 7 billion yet, Mr. President, just in case. Now, so there is
Matutuwa yung
available-
kapitan kapag naging barangay senator na sila, hindi na barangay kapitan.
6-year
Pag
term
6
na rin.
years na
Pareho
sila.
ng presidente. Which incidentally, whether it's the president or the barangay captain, we're all casuals.
True?
We have a 6-year term. Di ba?
Correct?
Okay. Now, the difference is that today, isn't it that the barangay officials have a contract with the people? Meaning to say, their term of office is 2 years.
3 years.
No, today,
Today,
Today?
as of 2017,
Yes.
tama po.
is only 2 because we extended it. Yung 3 ginawang 4, kaya yung natitirang 3, naging 2.
Tama po,
Right?
kaya lang, ang
their
pagkaintindi
contract-
nila, 3 years talaga.
Their contract with the voter is 2 years. Their contract today, when they were elected, maliwanag yung batas. 2
Ayon
years
sa
term.
batas, tama yun. Pero yung pagkaintindi nila at ng botante nila, 3 taon sila
Pero
maninilbihan.
ayon sa batas, 2 years.
Okay.
Na? Okay, now, and just to enrich the record again, if the Kapitan had the third term already today, when was he elected? In 2010, di ba? Would have been his first term.
Thereabouts.
Okay? So that Kapitan would have had 13 years to finish 3 terms,
That's about right.
right? And those elected in 2013 would also have 13 years to finish 3 terms, when their contract was only 9, based on 3-year, 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 3-term limit, di ba?
Jackpot po sila. Tama po
Di
kayo.
ba? Okay? So, and that is my point. All I'm saying is that, why don't we decide,
Once and for all.
once and for all, if we think that 3 years is the best, let's continue with the elections next year, or postpone it by 1 year, and if the request is to have it after the national elections in 2022, then thereafter, every 3. Now, if we look at the historical data, it appears that we don't want to give them 3-year terms, but a longer term. And if we decide let's do it 6 years, then there will be a savings. And that savings we can use for many other things. But then there's certainty in having elections. But in the meantime, let us respect the contract that our electorate has or have with the barangay officials. Ang maliwanag na pulong ay 2-year term sila ngayon. Parang hindi naman tama na we extend ang holdover ay 3 taon. Mas mahaba pa than the term that they were elected to serve. That's all the point I'm trying to
I
raise,
think these
Mr.
are
President.
valid points, and certainly at the forefront of the delivery of goods and services, there is a case to be made for having a longer term, upwards of 3, 4, 5 by experience, and even 6 years po. Matutuwa po yung kapitan niyan.
And I suppose there will be certainty at the same time. There will be a savings that we can spend for the Magna Carta of our barangays.
There we go. As well as the salary standardization,
Of local
as well
government
as the
units,
completion
yes.
of agrarian land reform, and so on and so forth.
Yes. So with that, as I promised, I will be brief and short in this interpolation. So thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to the distinguished sponsor for answering our clarifications. Thank you.